Have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and felt disappointed by what you see? Not just physically, but the person staring back at you. Have you promised yourself you'd change, only to fall back into the same patterns days later? Do you compare yourself to who you used to be and feel like you've lost something? Have you watched others make progress while you stay stuck in the same place? Are you tired of feeling weak when you know you could be strong? Have you told yourself, tomorrow I'll start, so many times that tomorrow never comes? Do you lie awake at night knowing you're capable of more but not knowing how to access it? Have you settled for less than you deserve because change feels too hard? What if I told you that you don't need to become a completely different person? You just need to be stronger than yesterday. You're not alone in this. Millions of people wake up every day feeling the gap between who they are and who they want to be. They see the potential inside themselves but can't seem to reach it. They start strong, full of motivation and promises, then life happens, stress, setbacks, exhaustion, and slowly, without even noticing, they slip back to where they started. You've been there. You felt the excitement of a fresh start turn into the disappointment of another false beginning. You've made promises to yourself you couldn't keep. You've set goals you didn't reach. And each time you fall short, that voice in your head gets a little louder. The one that says maybe you're not built for this, maybe you don't have what it takes. Maybe some people are just meant to be strong and you're not one of them. But here's what I know for certain. That voice is lying to you, because strength isn't something you're born with, it's something you build, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one small win at a time. The problem isn't that you're weak. The problem is that you've been sold a lie about how change works. You've been told that transformation happens through massive action, dramatic overhauls, complete reinvention. Quit your job, overhaul your entire life, become a different person overnight. So you try to change everything at once. New diet, new workout routine, new habits, new mindset, all at the same time. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, you're unstoppable. You're on fire. You're finally doing it. But massive change requires massive willpower. And willpower is a finite resource. It runs out. And when it does, you crash hard. You don't just go back to where you were. You go back feeling worse because now you've proven to yourself that you can't do it. You've added another failure to the list. Another reason to believe that voice that says you're not strong enough. But here's the truth they don't tell you. Sustainable change doesn't come from being dramatically different today. It comes from being slightly better than yesterday, and then slightly better again tomorrow, and again the day after that. Tiny improvements that compound over time into transformation you can actually maintain. Here's what happens if nothing changes. Today, you'll tell yourself you'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow, you'll find a reason to wait until next week. Next month, you'll still be in the same place, having the same internal arguments, making the same excuses. The gap between who you are and who you want to be will get wider. Not because you're moving backwards, but because you're standing still while time moves forward. A year from now, you'll look back and wish you had started today. 2 years from now, the regret will be deeper. 5 years from now, you'll wonder where the time went and why you never became the person you knew you could be. And the tragedy isn't that you tried and failed. The tragedy is that you never really tried at all because you were waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself. But perfect never comes. And while you're waiting for it, life is passing you by. That's the cost of waiting. That's what's at stake right now. Not just who you are today, but who you'll never become if you don't start. Here's what the self-improvement industry won't tell you. Motivation is unreliable, it comes and goes. You can't build a life on it. Willpower is limited. It depletes throughout the day. You can't sustain change through force alone. Dramatic transformation sounds inspiring but rarely lasts. The people who actually change, who actually get stronger, who actually become better versions of themselves, they don't rely on motivation or willpower or dramatic overhauls. They rely on something much simpler and much more powerful. They commit to being 1% better than they were yesterday. That's it. Not 10%, not 50%. Not a complete transformation, just 1%, and they do it again tomorrow, and the day after that, and 6 months later they're not the same person, not because they had some massive breakthrough, but because why improvements compounded into real change. This is how you actually get stronger, not through intensity that you can't maintain, but through consistency you can. This isn't theory. Researchers studying habit formation found that small, incremental changes are far more likely to stick than large, dramatic ones. Psychologists confirm that identity-based change, becoming the type of person who does the thing rather than just doing the thing, creates lasting transformation. Athletes and coaches know that progressive overload, gradually increasing difficulty over time, is how you build real strength. And I've personally watched thousands of people transform not through motivation or willpower, but through the simple commitment to be better than yesterday. Same principle, same process, different lives. It works. The question is whether you'll actually use it or keep waiting for some magical moment when change becomes easy. Here's what you need to understand. You already have everything required to get stronger. You don't need more time, you don't need more money, you don't need more resources or knowledge or support. You need one thing: the willingness to be slightly better today than you were yesterday. That's it. Not perfect, not transformed, just slightly better. Can you do one push-up today if you did 0 yesterday? Can you read 1 page if you read none yesterday? Can you choose one better option if you chose poorly yesterday? Yes, you can. And that's all you need to start. Because improvement isn't about massive leaps. It's about tiny steps in the right direction, repeated so consistently that they become who you are. Here's exactly what's going to happen in the next hour. Right now, you're stuck in patterns that aren't serving you, waiting for motivation that never lasts, trying and failing and trying again. In the first chapter, you're going to understand why motivation fails and what actually drives lasting change. You'll learn the difference between motivation-based change and identity-based change. Then, you're going to learn the power of small wins and how 1% improvements compound into transformation. This is where you stop trying to change everything and start changing one thing. Next, you'll discover how to build strength through progressive challenge. Not through intensity you can't maintain, but through gradual increases you can. After that, you'll learn how to overcome setbacks without losing momentum. Because you will have setbacks. Everyone does. The difference is what you do after. And finally, you'll learn how to make strength your identity so it becomes permanent, not temporary. By the end, you'll have a complete framework for getting stronger every single day. You'll know exactly what to do, how to do it, and why it works. And most importantly, you'll believe you can actually do it. By the end of this audiobook, you'll have clarity on what actually drives change and what doesn't. You'll have a system for 1% daily improvements that compound. You'll have strategies for building strength progressively without burning out. You'll have tools for handling setbacks without losing progress. You won't rely on motivation because you'll understand it's unreliable. You won't try to change everything because you'll know that's unsustainable. You won't feel overwhelmed because you'll have a clear, simple path forward. What you will feel is capable, empowered, like you finally have an approach that actually works, like you can become the stronger version of yourself you've always known was possible. And if you don't feel more confident in your ability to change after this hour, then I've failed you. But I won't, because this works. So here's the real question. Not whether you'll finish this audiobook, but who you'll be when you do. Will you be someone who listens and nothing changes? Who nods along but goes back to the same patterns? Who has the knowledge but not the action? Or will you be someone who takes one small step today, who commits to being 1% better, who looks back on today as the day you stopped waiting and started building? You get to decide, but you can't decide later. You can't think about it and get back to it. Because every day you wait is another day of staying the same. Every day you postpone is another day of not becoming stronger. So what's it going to be? More of the same or something different? The choice is yours, but you have to choose now. You have 1 hour, 60 minutes, less time than a workout, less time than a morning routine, but enough time to learn how to get stronger every single day. The next hour is going to separate you from the version of yourself that waits for motivation, tries to change everything at once, and gives up when it gets hard. You're either all in or you're out. There's no half listening. No, this is interesting, but I won't do anything. Now is when it starts. Right now. Take a breath. Feel where you are right now. This is your baseline. This is day 0. Tomorrow you'll be stronger, not because of some massive change, but because you committed to being 1% better. Let's begin. Chapter 1: Why Motivation Fails. Let's start with a hard truth. Motivation is not your friend. I know that sounds wrong. Every motivational video, every inspirational quote, every self-help book tells you that motivation is the key. Get motivated and you'll change your life. Find your why and you'll do anything. Feel inspired and you'll take action. But here's what they don't tell you. Motivation is temporary. It's an emotion. And like all emotions, it comes and goes. You can't build lasting change on something that disappears the moment life gets hard. Think about the last time you felt truly motivated. Maybe you watched an inspiring video. Maybe you read a powerful book. Maybe you had a moment of clarity where you saw exactly who you wanted to become. In that moment, you felt unstoppable. You were going to change everything, start working out, eat healthy, build that business, become that person. The motivation was real. The commitment was genuine, you meant it. But what happened a few days later, a week later? The motivation faded. Life got busy. Obstacles appeared. And without that emotional fuel, you stopped. Not because you're weak. Not because you don't want it, but because you were relying on something unreliable. Here's how motivation actually works. It's a spike. A temporary surge of emotional energy that makes action feel easy. When you're motivated, you don't need discipline. You don't need willpower. You just do it because you want to. The problem, that spike doesn't last. Within days, sometimes hours, it fades. And when it's gone, you're left with the same challenges, the same obstacles, the same resistance. Except now you don't have that emotional fuel, so you stop. You wait for motivation to come back. And sometimes it does. Another inspiring moment, another surge, another attempt, but the cycle repeats. Motivation, action, fade, stop. Motivation, action, fade, stop. You're not building momentum, you're just riding emotional waves. Now let's talk about what actually drives lasting change. Not motivation, identity. Not feeling inspired to do something, becoming the type of person who does it. This is the shift that changes everything. When you're motivated to work out, you rely on feeling like working out. When you identify as someone who works out, you do it whether you feel like it or not because that's who you are. When you're motivated to eat healthy, you rely on willpower to resist temptation. When you identify as a healthy person, you choose healthy options because it aligns with your identity. See the difference. One is based on emotion, the other is based on who you are. Let me give you an example. Two people want to quit smoking. Person one is motivated to quit. They watch videos about lung cancer, they read statistics, they feel inspired, they throw away their cigarettes. For a few days the motivation carries them, but then stress hits. A bad day, a trigger, and the motivation isn't there anymore, so they smoke. They feel guilty, they try again. The cycle continues. Person two doesn't rely on motivation, they change their identity. They don't see themselves as a smoker trying to quit. They see themselves as a non-smoker. When someone offers them a cigarette, they don't say, "I'm trying to quit." They say, "I don't smoke." It's not something they're doing. It's who they are. That's identity-based change, and it's far more powerful than motivation. So how do you shift from motivation-based change to identity-based change? You start with small wins that prove your new identity to yourself. You don't try to become a marathon runner overnight. You become someone who runs by running. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, you don't try to become a disciplined person through massive willpower. You become disciplined by keeping small promises to yourself. Each time you do the thing, you cast a vote for that identity. Each time you show up, even when you don't feel like it, you're proving to yourself that this is who you are. Over time, those votes accumulate. Your identity shifts. And once your identity shifts, the behavior becomes natural. Let's talk about willpower. Like motivation, it's limited. You wake up with a certain amount of it. Throughout the day, every decision you make, every temptation you resist, every hard thing you do depletes it. By evening, it's gone. This is why you're strong in the morning and weak at night. This is why you can resist the donut at breakfast but eat the entire bag of chips after dinner. You're not less committed at night. You're just out of willpower. And if you're relying on willpower to drive your change, you'll only be able to change when you have willpower available, which isn't sustainable. The solution: don't rely on willpower, make the behavior easier, remove friction, design your environment so the right choice is the easy choice. Want to work out in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes. Put your shoes by the bed. Remove every obstacle between you and the action. Want to eat healthier? Don't keep junk food in the house. You can't resist what isn't there. This isn't about having more willpower. It's about needing less. It's about making the desired behavior so easy that you can do it even when motivation is gone and willpower is depleted. Now let's address the biggest lie about change, that it happens through massive action, through going all in, through complete transformation. This works for about 2% of people, the rest crash and burn. Why? Because massive change is hard to maintain. It requires constant motivation, constant willpower, constant effort, and humans can't sustain that. What actually works is small, incremental change. 1% better, not 50%, not a complete overhaul. Just slightly better than yesterday. This seems insignificant. It feels like it's not enough. But here's what most people don't understand. Small improvements compound. 1% better every day for a year. You're not 1% better. You're 37 times better. That's the power of compound improvement. And it doesn't require motivation. It doesn't require massive willpower. It just requires showing up and being slightly better than yesterday. Let me break down why this works. When you try to change everything at once, you create massive resistance. Your brain sees the change as a threat. It activates stress responses. It fights back. You feel overwhelmed. You need constant motivation to push through that resistance. But when you make tiny changes, your brain doesn't perceive them as threatening. There's no resistance, no stress response, no need for motivation. You just do it because it's small enough to be easy. And once it becomes habit, once it becomes part of your identity, you can add another small change. Layer by layer, brick by brick, building a stronger version of yourself that's actually sustainable. Here's the framework. Instead of asking, what massive change can I make? Ask, what's the smallest improvement I can make today? Instead of, how can I completely transform? Ask, how can I be 1% better than yesterday? Instead of relying on motivation, build systems. Instead of depending on willpower, reduce friction. Instead of trying to become a different person, become a slightly better version of who you already are. This is how lasting change actually happens. Not through inspiration that fades, but through tiny, consistent actions that compound into transformation. Let me give you specific examples. You want to get fit. Don't commit to working out an hour every day. Commit to 5 push-ups, that's it. 5 push-ups is so small you can't say no. So small you don't need motivation. So small you can do it every single day. And once you're doing 5 push-ups every day for a week, you're no longer someone who doesn't work out. You're someone who does. Your identity shifts. And from that identity, 5 becomes 10. 10 becomes 20. Not because you're forcing it, because it's who you are now. You want to read more, don't commit to reading an hour a day. Commit to 1 page. 1 single page. Can't say you don't have time. Can't say you're too tired. 1 page every day. And once reading 1 page is automatic, it becomes 2, then 5, then a chapter. Your identity as a reader solidifies with each page. The pattern is always the same. Start so small you can't fail. Make it so easy you don't need motivation. Do it consistently until it becomes identity. Then build from there. This is how you actually get stronger, not through dramatic transformation that doesn't last, but through tiny improvements that compound into real, permanent change. In the next chapter, we're going to dive deeper into how 1% improvements actually work and how to implement them in your life. Chapter 2: The Power of 1%. Now that you understand why motivation fails and identity matters, let's talk about how to actually use 1% improvements to get stronger. This is where theory becomes practice. This is where you learn exactly what to do. First, let's understand what 1% actually means. It doesn't mean calculate exactly 1% of your current performance and aim for that. It means make the smallest possible improvement from where you are now. If you did 0 push-ups yesterday, 1 today is infinite percent improvement. If you read 0 pages, 1 page is infinite improvement. The math doesn't matter. What matters is the principle. Slightly better than yesterday. That's it. Not dramatically better. Not perfect, just slightly better. Here's why this is so powerful. Small improvements don't trigger resistance. Your brain doesn't fight them. You don't need motivation to do 1 push-up. You don't need massive willpower to read 1 page. It's small enough to be easy. And when something is easy, you actually do it. Consistency beats intensity every single time. 1 push-up every day for a year, 365 push-ups. That's real progress. Versus trying to do 100 push-ups, lasting 3 days, then quitting. 300 push-ups total, then nothing. Consistency wins. But here's where it gets really interesting. Small improvements compound. They don't just add up. They multiply. Let me show you the math. If you improve by 1% every day for a year, you're not 365% better. You're 37 times better. How? Compound growth. 1.01 to the power of 365 equals 37.78. You're not adding 1% each day. You're multiplying. Each improvement builds on the last. This is why people who commit to tiny daily improvements transform completely, while people who try for massive changes stay stuck. Now let's talk about how to actually implement this. Step 1. Identify what you want to get stronger at. Be specific, not get in shape. That's vague. Do more push-ups. Run farther. Lift heavier, specific, not be smarter, that's vague. Read more books. Learn a new skill, specific. You can't improve what you can't measure, so get clear on exactly what you're improving. Step 2. Find your baseline. Where are you right now? If you want to do more push-ups, how many can you do today? If you want to read more, how much do you read now? You need to know your starting point. This isn't about judgment, it's about data. You can't get better if you don't know where you're starting from. Step 3. Make it smaller. Whatever improvement you're thinking of, cut it in half. Then cut it in half again. If you're thinking, I'll read 30 minutes a day, make it 15. Then make it 5. Then make it 1 page. Get it so small that it feels almost embarrassingly easy. That's how you know it's right. Because if it's embarrassingly easy, you'll actually do it. And doing it is all that matters. Step 4. Do it every day. This is non-negotiable. Consistency is the entire game. 1% better every day only works if you actually do it every day. Not when you feel motivated. Not when it's convenient. Every day. Build the streak. Protect the streak. The streak is what builds identity. The streak is what proves to yourself that you're the type of person who does this. Miss a day and you break the identity formation. Don't miss a day. Step 5. Track it. Write it down. Mark it on a calendar. Use an app, something. You need visual proof that you're doing it. This serves 2 purposes. 1, it reinforces the identity. You see the evidence that you're someone who does this. 2, it creates accountability. Once you have a streak going, you don't want to break it. That streak becomes valuable. You'll show up just to keep it alive. Step 6. Gradually increase. Once the current level becomes automatic, add a little more. If you're doing one push-up and it's become effortless, make it 2. If you're reading one page and it feels easy, make it 2. The increase should be small enough that it doesn't feel like a big jump. You're looking for slight discomfort, not struggle. If it feels too hard, you've increased too much. Scale back. The goal is sustainable progress, not burnout. Let me give you a real example. You want to get stronger physically. Your baseline is 0 push-ups. Day 1, you do 1 push-up. It's easy, almost too easy, but you do it. Day 2, 1 push-up. Day 3, 1 push-up. After a week, 1 push-up is automatic. You're building the identity of someone who does push-ups. Week 2, you increase to 2, still easy. Week 3, still 2. Week 4, 3. You're not trying to get to 50 push-ups by next month. You're just being slightly better than last week. 6 months later, you're doing 20 push-ups without thinking about it. A year later, 50. Not because you forced it, because why? Oh, built it gradually. Or reading, your baseline is 0. Day 1, 1 page takes 2 minutes. Day 2, 1 page. After 2 weeks, 1 page is automatic. You're now someone who reads daily. Week 3, 2 pages. Week 6, 5 pages. 6 months later, you're reading a book every 2 weeks. Not because you're forcing yourself. Because you're a reader now. It's your identity. Here's what most people get wrong. They start too big. They commit to changes they can't sustain. They rely on motivation to carry them through. And when motivation fades, they quit. Then they think they failed. But they didn't fail. The approach failed. Because the approach was unsustainable from the start. You can't build lasting change on intensity. You can only build it on consistency. And you can't be consistent with something that requires constant motivation. Let's talk about the plateau effect. You'll hit plateaus, periods where you're doing the work but not seeing obvious progress. This is normal. This is where most people quit. They think it's not working, but plateaus are where the real growth happens. You're building foundation. You're reinforcing identity. The results aren't visible yet, but they're coming. Trust the process. Keep showing up. The breakthrough comes after the plateau, not during it. Now a crucial point. 1% improvements work in all areas, not just physical strength, mental strength, emotional resilience, skills, knowledge, relationships. The principle is universal, slightly better than yesterday, applied consistently, compounded over time. Want to be more patient? Practice 1 small moment of patience today. Want to be more confident? Take 1 small action outside your comfort zone. Want to be more disciplined? Keep 1 small promise to yourself. Each small win builds the identity. Each small action is a vote for who you're becoming. Here's the beautiful thing about this approach. It removes pressure. You're not trying to be perfect. You're not trying to transform overnight. You're just trying to be 1% better. That's achievable. That doesn't require superhuman willpower. That doesn't need constant motivation. It just needs commitment to the process. And when you remove the pressure of perfection, you actually make more progress. Because you show up consistently instead of burning out in dramatic attempts. Let me address the objection I always hear. 1% seems so small, it'll take forever. 2 responses. First, it only seems like it'll take forever compared to the fantasy of instant transformation. But instant transformation doesn't exist, so you're comparing reality to fantasy. Second, time is passing anyway. A year from now, you'll be a year older. The question is, will you be stronger or will you be the same? 1% daily for a year, 37 times stronger. 0% daily for a year, the same, Which do you want? The power of 1% isn't in the size of the improvement. It's in the consistency of it. It's in the compound effect. It's in the identity formation. It's in building something that actually lasts instead of burning bright and fading fast. This is how you get stronger, not through motivation that disappears, but through tiny, consistent actions that compound into transformation. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about how to progressively build strength without burning out. Chapter 3: Progressive Strength Building. You understand 1% improvements. Now let's talk about how to build real strength through progressive challenge. Not through intensity you can't maintain, but through gradual increases that compound. Let's start with a principle from strength training that applies to all types of strength: progressive overload. You can't get stronger doing the same thing forever. Your body adapts. What was hard becomes easy. To continue getting stronger, you need to progressively increase the challenge. But here's the key. The increase has to be gradual. Too much too fast and you get injured or burned out. Too little and you plateau. The sweet spot is just slightly more than you can comfortably handle. In physical strength, this looks like adding a little weight to the bar, doing one more rep, running a little farther. Small increases over time. In mental strength, it looks like tackling slightly harder problems, staying focused slightly longer, pushing through discomfort slightly more. In emotional strength, it looks like handling slightly more stress, being patient in slightly harder situations, regulating emotions in slightly more challenging contexts. The pattern is always the same. Identify current capacity, add a small challenge, adapt, repeat. Here's how to implement progressive overload in any area. Start with your baseline. What can you do now without struggle? That's your starting point. Then add the minimum viable challenge. The smallest increase that creates slight discomfort but not overwhelm. For physical training, this might be 1 more rep or 5 more pounds. For reading, 1 more page. For meditation, 1 more minute. The challenge should be noticeable but manageable. Do this new level consistently until it becomes comfortable. This is crucial. Don't increase again until the current level is easy. How do you know it's easy? You can do it without significant mental resistance. You don't need to psyche yourself up. You don't need motivation. You just do it because it's what you do. That's when you know you've adapted. Then increase again. Same principle. Minimum viable challenge, slightly more than before. And here's what most people miss. The increases don't have to be linear. You don't have to increase every week. Sometimes you stay at a level for 2 weeks, sometimes 3. Sometimes you even decrease temporarily if life gets hard. The goal isn't constant increase. The goal is long-term upward trajectory with sustainable steps. Let me give you a detailed example. You want to build the strength to wake up early. Your baseline is waking at 8 a.m. Don't jump to 5 a.m. That's too big a jump. You'll need massive willpower. You'll last maybe a few days. Instead, set your alarm for 7:45. 15 minutes earlier, that's it. For 1 week, wake at 7:45. Let your body adjust. Let it become normal. Week 2, still 7:45. Week 3, 7:30. Week 4, still 7:30. Week 5, 7:15. You're not trying to get to 5 a.m. next month. You're progressively building the capacity to wake earlier. 6 months later, you're waking at 6. A year later, 5:30. Not because you forced it, because you built it gradually. Or building mental strength through focused work. Your baseline is 15 minutes of focused work before getting distracted. Don't try to jump to 2 hours. Increase to 20 minutes. Do that for a week. Then 25. Then 30. Each increase is small enough that it doesn't feel like a massive effort. But over time, you're building real capacity for deep work. 6 months later, you can focus for 90 minutes straight, not through willpower, through progressive capacity building. Now let's talk about the role of discomfort. Growth happens at the edge of your comfort zone, not deep in the pain zone, not in the comfortable zone, at the edge, slight discomfort. This is the signal you're challenging yourself appropriately. If it feels easy, you're not growing. If it feels impossible, you're pushing too hard. If it feels challenging but doable, you're in the sweet spot. Learn to recognize that feeling. That's where adaptation happens. Here's a critical point. Progressive strength building requires recovery. You can't challenge yourself maximally every single day. Your body needs time to adapt. Your mind needs time to consolidate. Your nervous system needs time to recover. This is why even in 1% daily improvements, some days are about maintenance, not progress. Some days you do your baseline, not your max. And that's okay. That's part of sustainable building. You can't sprint a marathon. You build strength through a mix of challenge and recovery. Let's address setbacks. You'll have days where you can't do your current level. Sick days, stressful days. Life happens. Don't catastrophize this. Don't think you've lost all progress. You haven't. Adaptation isn't lost in one day or even 1 week. What matters is getting back on track quickly. If you miss a day, don't try to make up for it by doubling the next day. Just get back to your current level. Protect the identity, not the perfect streak. The identity is, I'm someone who does this. One missed day doesn't erase that if you get back to it immediately. Now let's talk about the difference between acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is short-term challenge, a hard workout, a difficult conversation, a challenging project. This builds strength. You stress the system, then recover, and the system adapts to handle that stress better next time. Chronic stress is long-term overwhelm without recovery. This breaks you down. It doesn't build strength. It depletes it. Progressive overload is about acute stress. Challenging yourself, recovering, adapting. Not about chronic overwhelm. Here's how to know if you're doing it right. Are you making progress over weeks and months, even if it's small? Then you're doing it right. Are you able to maintain consistency? Then you're doing it right. Do you feel challenged but not overwhelmed? Then you're doing it right. Are you building confidence in your ability to handle more? Then you're doing it right. If any of these are no, you're probably pushing too hard. Scale back. Build the foundation. Speed comes from sustainability, not from forcing intensity you can't maintain. Let me give you a framework for different types of strength building. Physical strength. Start with body weight or very light weights. Focus on form. Gradually increase resistance or reps. Prioritize consistency over intensity. Mental strength. Start with short focus sessions. Gradually increase duration. Add complexity slowly. Mix challenge with recovery days. Emotional strength. Start with small discomforts. Practice regulation in low-stakes situations. Gradually face bigger challenges. Build emotional vocabulary and awareness. Skill strength. Start with fundamentals. Master basics before advancing. Layer complexity gradually. Practice consistently even when progress feels slow. The pattern is always the same. Start where you are. Add small challenges. Adapt. Repeat. This works because it respects how adaptation actually happens. Your body, mind, and nervous system need time to adjust to new demands. When you give them that time, they build capacity. When you don't, they break down. Here's a powerful reframe. You're not trying to get stronger fast. You're trying to get stronger permanently. And permanent strength comes from sustainable building, not unsustainable intensity. Think of it like building a house. You could try to build it in a week by working 24/7, but the quality would be terrible and you'd burn out. Or you could build it brick by brick with proper foundation and structure over months. The result? A house that lasts. Same with strength. You're building something that lasts, not something that impresses for a moment then collapses. One more crucial point: track your progress, not just to see results but to see the trajectory. Some weeks you'll make big jumps, some weeks you'll plateau, some weeks you might even go backwards temporarily. But when you look at the long-term trend, it's upward. That's what matters. Day-to-day fluctuations are normal. Week-to-week variations happen. But month over month and year over year, you're getting stronger. As long as that long-term trend is up, you're winning. Progressive strength building is patient work. It's not flashy. It's not dramatic, but it's real, it's sustainable. And it's how you actually build strength that lasts. In the next chapter, we're going to talk about how to handle setbacks without losing all your progress. Because setbacks will happen. The question is what you do with them. Chapter 4: Handling Setbacks. Let's talk about something everyone faces but few people handle well. Setbacks. You're going to have them. You're going to get sick. You're going to get injured. You're going to have stressful periods where you can't maintain your routine. You're going to have days where you completely fall apart. This isn't a matter of if. It's a matter of when. And what separates people who get stronger from people who stay stuck is not whether they have setbacks. It's how they respond to them. Let's start with the mindset shift. A setback is not failure, it's data, it's information, it's feedback. When you view it as failure, you catastrophize, you think all progress is lost. You feel defeated, you give up. When you view it as data, you ask different questions. What happened? Why? What can I learn? What needs to adjust? This shift from I failed to I learned changes everything. Here's the pattern most people follow. They're doing well, making progress, building momentum. Then life happens, setback, and instead of getting back on track, they spiral. One missed day becomes a missed week. A missed week becomes a missed month. They tell themselves they've already ruined it, so what's the point? Might as well start over next Monday, next month, next year, but starting over never comes. They just stay stuck. Why? Because they viewed the setback as failure instead of as temporary disruption. Here's what actually works. The 2-day rule. You're allowed to miss one day. Life happens, you get sick, emergency, fine, but you never miss 2 days in a row. Never, because 2 days starts a new pattern. 2 days is no longer a disruption, it's a choice. So if you miss Monday, Tuesday is non-negotiable. Even if you can only do the absolute minimum. Even if it's 1 push-up instead of 20. Even if it's 1 page instead of a chapter, you show up. You protect the identity. The identity is I'm someone who does this. One missed day doesn't erase that. 2 consecutive days starts to. Let me give you a specific example. You're building a workout habit. You've been doing push-ups every day for 3 weeks. Then you get sick, you're in bed, can't work out, that's fine, that's day 1 missed. But day 2, even if you're still not feeling great, you do 1 push-up. Literally 1. Is it pathetic compared to your normal workout? Yes. Does it matter? No. Because you're not protecting the workout, you're protecting the identity. You're proving to yourself that sickness doesn't change who you are. You're someone who works out. Even when sick, even when it's minimal, you still show up. That's the identity. And identity is what makes change permanent. Now let's talk about the restart protocol. Sometimes life completely derails you. You don't just miss a day or 2, you miss weeks. Surgery, family emergency, major life transition, it happens. And when it does, you don't try to pick up where you left off. That's too big a jump. You'll fail and feel worse. Instead, you restart at 50% of where you were. If you were doing 20 push-ups, restart at 10. If you were reading 30 pages, restart at 15. Give yourself permission to step back. You haven't lost all your progress. You've just temporarily decreased capacity. You'll rebuild quickly. Muscle memory is real. Neural pathways are real. You'll get back to your previous level much faster than it took to build it the first time. Let's address the perfectionism trap. You had a perfect streak going, 30 days, 60 days, then you missed 1 day. And now you think the streak is ruined, so what's the point? This is all or nothing thinking, and it's toxic. The streak was never the point. The identity was the point. You're still the person who does this. 1 missed day doesn't change that. What changes it is quitting entirely because the streak broke. So reframe. You're not maintaining a perfect streak. You're maintaining an identity. And identities don't require perfection. They require consistency over time. Here's a powerful concept: minimum viable effort. On days when you can't do your normal routine, what's the absolute minimum you could do and still count it? For working out, maybe 1 push-up. For reading, 1 page. For meditation, 1 minute. For writing, 1 sentence. Define your minimum viable effort for each habit you're building. Then on hard days, on sick days, on overwhelmed days, you do the minimum. Not because it makes a physical difference, but because it maintains the identity. It keeps the pattern alive. And keeping the pattern alive matters more than the amount of effort. Let's talk about injury or forced rest. Sometimes you physically can't do the thing. Injured shoulder, can't do push-ups. What do? You don't abandon strength building entirely. You pivot. Can't do push-ups, do squats. Can't run, bike. Can't lift, stretch. The point is you're still someone who trains their body. The specific exercise doesn't matter as much as the identity. Of being someone who moves. So when one path is blocked, find another path. Maintain the identity through alternative actions. Now emotional setbacks. Days where you're so overwhelmed or depressed that you can't function normally. These are the hardest because your mind tells you nothing matters. On these days, the minimum viable effort is crucial. You might not be able to do your full routine, but can you do 1 thing? 1 small thing that aligns with who you're trying to become? If so, do that 1 thing, not because it'll fix your emotional state, but because it'll remind you that even on the worst days, you're still that person. You're still building, even if it's barely visible progress. Let's discuss the comparison trap after setbacks. You see others who didn't have your setback. They're ahead now. They kept going while you stopped. This comparison is poison. They're running their race. You're running yours. Their path doesn't have your obstacles. Your path doesn't have theirs. Comparing is useless. Focus on your own trajectory. Are you further along than you were 6 months ago? Yes. Then you're winning. The only comparison that matters is you versus past you. Here's a framework for handling any setback. Step 1. Acknowledge what happened. Don't deny it. Don't minimize it. Something disrupted your progress. Okay. Step 2. Identify what's within your control. You can't control getting sick. You can control getting back on track once you're able. Step 3. Restart at appropriate level, not where you were, where you are now. Step 4. Rebuild progressively. Same principles. Gradual increase. Step 5. Extract the lesson. What did this setback teach you? How can you be more resilient to similar disruptions in the future? Let me give you a real example. You've been building a morning routine. Wake at 6, workout red. You've been doing it for 2 months. Then work gets crazy. You have to start going in early. Can't maintain the routine. Setback. Step 1. Acknowledge work demands changed. The 6 a.m. routine doesn't fit anymore. Step 2. Identify what's in your control. You can't control work hours. You can control evening routine. Step 3. Restart appropriately. Evening workout. Read before bed. Step 4. Rebuild. Start with 10 minutes evening workout. Gradually increase. Step 5. Lesson. Build flexibility into systems. Have backup plans for when circumstances change. Here's the truth about setbacks. They're inevitable, but they're not permanent unless you choose to make them permanent. Every person who's achieved real strength has had countless setbacks, injuries, life disruptions, failures. What made them different wasn't the absence of setbacks. It was the response to setbacks. They got back up. They restarted. They kept building. And that's what you'll do too. One final point. Setbacks often reveal weak points in your systems. If you quit every time life gets stressful, maybe the system is too rigid. If you can't maintain anything when traveling, maybe you need more portable habits. If you lose all progress when you get sick, maybe you need a clearer minimum viable effort protocol. Use setbacks as information to build better systems. Don't just get back on track. Get back on a better track. Setbacks don't mean you're weak. They mean you're human, and humans face obstacles. The question isn't whether you'll face setbacks. It's whether you'll let setbacks define you or refine you. Will you let them stop you or strengthen you? That choice is yours, every time. In the final chapter, we're going to talk about making strength your permanent identity. Chapter 5. Making strength your identity. You've learned the principles. You understand 1% improvements. You know how to build progressively. You can handle setbacks. Now let's talk about the final piece. Making strength your identity so it becomes permanent, not temporary. Let's start with what identity actually means. It's your beliefs about yourself. Your answer to who am I? Most people's identities are based on external things. Job, relationships, circumstances. I'm a teacher. I'm a parent. I'm someone who's out of shape. These identities are fragile. When circumstances change, identity crashes. But real identity, the kind that drives lasting change, is based on your actions and values. I'm someone who shows up. I'm someone who keeps promises to myself. I'm someone who doesn't quit. This type of identity is resilient. because it's based on who you are, not what happens to you. Here's how identity actually changes. Every action you take is a vote for the person you're becoming. Do one push-up. That's a vote for being someone who works out. Read one page. Vote for being a reader. Keep a promise to yourself. Vote for being disciplined. Each small action reinforces or contradicts your identity, and your brain is keeping score. When you have enough votes for a particular identity, that's who you become, not through declaration, through demonstration. Let me break this down. You can't just decide to identify as strong. That's wishful thinking. Identity comes from evidence, so you create evidence. You do the thing, then you do it again and again. After enough repetitions, your brain has the evidence it needs. I do this consistently. This is who I am. That's when behavior becomes automatic, not because you're using willpower, because it aligns with your identity. You do it because that's who you are. Here's the beautiful thing about this approach. You don't need to wait until you've achieved the goal to claim the identity. You claim it through the process. You're not waiting to become a runner after you run a marathon. You become a runner the day you start running, even if it's for 5 minutes. Even if you're slow, the identity comes from the action, not the achievement. And once you have the identity, the achievements follow naturally. Let's talk about specific strategies for building identity through action. Strategy 1. Focus on systems, not goals. Goals are about what you want to achieve. Systems are about who you want to become. Goal-oriented thinking says, I want to run a marathon. Identity-based thinking says, I want to become a runner. See the difference? The goal is external. The identity is internal. And when you focus on identity, you show up whether you hit the goal or not, because you're not showing up for the achievement. You're showing up because that's who you are. Strategy 2. Use identity-affirming language. Pay attention to how you talk about yourself. Instead of I'm trying to work out more, say I'm someone who works out. Instead of I'm trying to eat healthy, say I'm a healthy person. Instead of I'm working on being disciplined, say I'm disciplined. The language you use shapes how you see yourself, and how you see yourself determines what you do. Strategy 3. Create rituals. Rituals are behaviors linked to identity. A runner has a pre-run ritual. A writer has a writing ritual. These rituals signal to your brain, this is who we are. This is what we do. Build rituals around the actions that support your desired identity. Make them consistent. Make them meaningful. Over time, the ritual reinforces the identity. Strategy 4. Join a community. Surround yourself with people who have the identity you're building. If you want to be a runner, hang around runners. If you want to be disciplined, hang around disciplined people. Your environment shapes your identity. When everyone around you exhibits certain behaviors, those behaviors become normal, and you adopt them naturally. Strategy 5. Visualize your identity, not the achievement, the person. What does the strong version of you do daily? How do they handle challenges? How do they show up? Visualize that person regularly. Then ask, what would that person do right now? And do that. You're not pretending, you're practicing, and practice becomes identity. Now let's talk about identity protection. Once you've built an identity, you have to protect it. This is crucial because life will test you. Circumstances will change. Challenges will come. And in those moments, you'll face a choice. Protect the identity or abandon it. If you've identified as someone who works out and you have a crazy week, you don't abandon the identity. You do the minimum to maintain it. because losing the identity is far more costly than missing a few workouts. Let's address identity conflicts. Sometimes your old identity conflicts with your new one. I'm not a morning person conflicts with I wake up early. I'm naturally lazy. Conflicts with I'm disciplined. These conflicts create internal resistance. The solution: realize that old identities aren't fixed. They're based on past evidence, but you're creating new evidence now. And eventually the new evidence outweighs the old. You're not changing who you are, you're becoming who you actually want to be. The old identity was never permanent, it was just habitual. Here's how to know if identity has truly shifted. The behavior feels natural. You don't need motivation, you don't need to psyche yourself up. You just do it because that's what you do. When missing it feels wrong, you know the identity is solid. When you feel uncomfortable not doing it, when it bothers you to break the pattern, the identity has taken root. That's when change becomes permanent. Let me give you a long-term vision. Right now, you might need reminders to do the thing. You might need systems and accountability. That's fine, that's the building phase. But 6 months from now, a year, 5 years, you won't need reminders, you won't need systems. You'll just do it because that's who you are. The person who works out, the person who reads, the person who shows up, the person who doesn't quit. That identity will be so deeply ingrained that not doing it would feel wrong. That's the end goal. Not perfect behavior, but automatic behavior driven by identity. Now expanding identity. Once you've solidified one identity, you can build another. But don't try to build 5 identities at once. Focus on one, make it solid, then layer the next. If you're building I'm someone who works out, make that solid before adding I'm someone who eats healthy. One identity at a time, layer by layer. This is how you build a comprehensive, strong identity over years. Let's talk about identity in adversity. The true test of identity isn't when life is easy, it's when life is hard. When you're stressed, when you're overwhelmed, when everything is falling apart, do you still show up? Do you still do the thing, even minimally? If yes, the identity is real. If no, it's still surface level. This is why the 2-day rule matters. Why minimum viable effort matters. They protect identity in adversity. Here's a powerful reframe. You're not trying to achieve things. You're trying to become someone. And the person you're becoming naturally achieves things because that's who they are. This shift from doing to being changes everything. You're no longer white-knuckling your way through actions hoping for results. You're embodying an identity that naturally produces those results. Final point. Identity is forgiving. You're allowed to mess up. You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to be human. The identity isn't I'm perfect. It's I'm someone who shows up. I'm someone who tries. I'm someone who doesn't quit. Those identities allow for imperfection. They allow for setbacks. They allow for humanity. And that's what makes them sustainable. You're not becoming a robot. You're becoming a stronger version of yourself. A version that still has bad days but doesn't let bad days define them. A version that still faces setbacks but doesn't quit because of them. A version that's not perfect but is consistently working to be better. That's the identity you're building. And that identity will carry you further than motivation ever could. Let's bring this together. You learned why motivation fails, because it's temporary, it's emotional, it fades. Real change comes from identity, not inspiration. You learn the power of 1%. Small improvements compound. 1% better daily for a year equals 37 times better. Consistency beats intensity. You learned progressive strength building, gradual challenge, appropriate recovery, long-term trajectory over short-term intensity. You learn to handle setbacks. 2-day rule, minimum viable effort, restart at 50%. Setbacks are data, not failure. You learn to make strength your identity. Every action is a vote. Evidence creates identity. Identity drives behavior. So here's what it all comes down to. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to be better than yesterday. Not perfect. Not transformed overnight. Just slightly better. And if you do that consistently, if you show up even when you don't feel like it, if you protect the identity through the setbacks, you'll look back in 6 months, a year, 5 years, and barely recognize who you used to be. Not because you had some massive breakthrough, but because tiny improvements compounded into real transformation. Right now, do this. Pick one thing, just one. One area where you want to get stronger. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's mental, maybe it's emotional. Pick one. Then commit to being 1% better at that thing tomorrow than you are today. That's it. Not 10%, not 50%. 1%. Write it down, make it specific, make it small enough that you can't fail. Then do it. Tomorrow, do it again. And the day after, protect the streak. Build the identity. Prove to yourself that you're someone who shows up. Here's what happens when you do. First few weeks, it'll feel small, almost pointless, but you'll be building the foundation. First few months, you'll notice changes, not dramatic, but real. 6 months in, people will start commenting. You look different. You seem different. A year in, you won't recognize yourself. Not because any single day was transformative, but because 365 days of 1% better added up to someone fundamentally stronger. You have everything you need. You know motivation is unreliable. You know 1% compounds. You know how to build progressively. You know how to handle setbacks. You know how to build identity. Now use it. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you feel ready. Just be 1% better tomorrow than you are today. That's all you need to do. And if you do that, everything changes. Tomorrow you'll be stronger than yesterday. Not because of some massive effort, but because you showed up. You kept the promise. You cast another vote for the person you're becoming. And that person is stronger. That person doesn't quit. That person doesn't wait for motivation. That person just shows up and does the work. That's who you're becoming. 1% at a time, 1 day at a time, stronger than yesterday, starting tomorrow. You've got this.